G'day. Today's video is about this thing. It's a Mitutoyo height gauge, goes up to 300 millimeters. I already have a height gauge. It's a bigger one and it's digital. It runs out of batteries and all the other fun things that digitals do just when you don't want them to. So this was a choice I made to I had something a little bit more portable that I can put on mill tables and things and not worry so much about it and lift it with one hand and all the rest of it. So this is about the restoration of, or the clean-up and restoration, replacement, repair, whatever you want to call it, of this height gauge. Now, I favour Mitutoyo and Starrett for that matter over other brands for this sort of thing, because both of those brands have parts lists and diagrams on their websites for their bits and pieces, and so it makes it a little bit easier to work out what's missing, what's there, what's not. Some of you may be asking, well, why this one rather than another one, or another style? Well, to start with, it's got this adjustment arrangement here. What you can do is you can adjust the position of the scale up and down slightly. Now, most of the times you'll set it and leave it, but what it means is you can grind the scriber tip, resharpen it or something like that, and adjust that out to suit so you can still zero that on your surface plate, and so that's a nice feature. The other thing that I like about this style is this arrangement. What this means, and you get this on verniers and things as well, but what it means is you can tighten that clamp there up and that holds on, and then you use that screw there to do fine adjustment, and so you can adjust this up and down to get an exact reading. So to me, those two features make this a worthwhile buy. So there are a couple of issues with it that need to be sorted out. It looks like from this dented corner that this has been dropped. From the top of it here, it's got an accumulation of dust and rust, and so it's been sitting on a shelf for quite some time. Turning it around, that nut should be more like this little knob here. So that's gone missing. It's been replaced just with a straight nut. You can also see on the back here, this is painted and it's been used so much that it's worn away. The whole thing is generally in a condition of pretty grubby anyway, so that needs to be cleaned as well. When trying to do something like this up, one of the decisions you have to make is what state do you want it in. If you want it to be sort of as original, concourse, all that sort of thing, you're going to make different choices than if you want to get it to something that's usable. So for example, on the paint, I'll probably strip off the old paint and then repaint it with a similar colour, but you know, won't be the same. I'm probably going to, that ding up the top there, I'm probably just going to run a file across that and flatten it out so that it's not you know, spiky and going to skewer me. The knob, I'll probably make up a new one of those, but it won't be, you know, the same. It won't have the same plating. What else is there that's going to be different here? One of the nice things about this unit was that when I looked at it and looked on the catalogue pages, it looked like it was complete. It had the scriber, that's missing on a lot of them. The scriber clamp is missing on some of them. The lens is missing, but that's a pretty common thing. I think they get taken off and put in a cupboard 9 times out of 10 when the things are first bought. But it's basically complete for what I want to use it for. So for me, to get this back into service, I'm going to take it all apart. I'll use a stainless wire brush to clean off some of these surfaces. As I said, I'll probably file some of the burrs and things that have occurred over the years, lubricate it with a light machine oil, clean off some of the ingrained dirt and grub. If the weather was a little bit nicer to me, I'd probably paint it. I may have to leave that till later. Here are most of the parts. I've just taken it apart. When you're doing this, if you're not familiar with the equipment, by all means, you know, take photos, record what you're doing, all that sort of thing. Having that parts diagram also helps with this sort of stuff. So I've just got them soaking in some solvent. I think it's mainly kerosene, but you can see there that because it's been sitting out, it's picked up some dirt, it's picked up a bit of rust, so I'll clean that off. I've got a couple of brushes here. That's a fine stainless brush there. Not sponsored by these guys. These are available in a kit of 3. I think there's a stainless one, a brass one, and stainless one, a steel one, and a nylon one, I think. So I'll use a combination of these 2 on these parts just to clean them up. These are pretty right, but I did have a nasty shock once when I tried cleaning up some a printout on a set of pin gauges, and the solvent just sort of wiped the labels off everything. So if in doubt, check it. But Mitutoyo being a reputable brand and made for industrial use, I would be very surprised if solvent was going to wash things away. One thing I haven't taken apart is this. The problem with taking a beam out like that is that in order for this thing to be accurate, this really does need to be, square. So unless this is horribly out, and I'll check this in a moment, I'll probably leave it as is and go from there. Having said that, it looks like it has been dropped, and so it may be horribly out. We'll see. I'm about to just check this for square against my cylindrical square here, but I just thought I'd mention the base. It's pointless trying to assess something for squareness or flatness or anything like that if the base is rusty. So I had a look on there, had a little bit of rust on there, so I've given it a bit of a wire brush. A bit of emery could also help if it was nasty, but yeah, just one of those traps that it's fine saying, oh, I'll just check that like that, but if the base isn't flat, it's not going to work, or it's not going to give you an accurate result. So that's just something to bear in mind. I've got a cylindrical square here, and this is my master reference for squareness in the workshop, and this surface plate is my master reference for flatness. So if either of these are out, I'm in trouble anyway. But if I put that up against the beam there, you may not be able to see it, but to me, up the top is in contact, but down the bottom there's a little bit of a gap. So I suspect that when this was dropped, it's knocked it slightly out of square. I'm not going to worry about that too much at the moment, because in terms of its measurement, it won't affect things drastically. If I was chasing microns, it might, but I'm not chasing that with this. But it means that if I take this apart to paint it, which I'll do at a later date, I can take this apart and not have to worry about it not being out of, or it being out of square, because, well, basically it's not square now. So in a way, that's a bit of a relief. It gives me an out to take this apart. Here are all the parts cleaned up. They haven't come out too badly. For the most part, they've cleaned up. There are a couple of bits that have got some dings in it, like those, but they're not terrible. And I've just very lightly run that over the face of the file just to take off any sharp burrs and protruding bits. There aren't any pits or anything like that in these things. There's paint missing, certainly, but I'll address that at a later date, and same for that one there. The ground in grime seems to have gone. Right, so I've reassembled everything here. I left this piece off because I'm not sure what I'm doing with the magnifying glass yet. That should go that way. Whether I can get one, whether there's a better way of doing things, don't know. So I've just left that off for the moment. Here I've put on some M3x6 Phillips head screws because I haven't got any M3x6 button heads. Next time I'm at the fastener shop I'll get some of those. The ones that were on there I had a lot of trouble getting them out because the heads the hex sockets had been burred over, so I figured, well, I might as well replace them. So that's all good. The only other thing to do is this bit. According to the parts list, the nut on there should be the same as one of these. On here was a hex nut, so I'll now have a go at turning one of those up on the lathe and seeing how I go. Right, a little bit of lathe cam. So that's what I have to reproduce. Now that knurl, when I compare it to the knurls I've got, looks to be about a 30 TPI knurl. That's a 20, and these come in a variety of sizes. And so you, in a case of a straight knurl, I push that in, and that produces a knurl. This part though has got a slight dome on the front there. It's got a relief step there and a relief step there, and it's tapped M4 right through. So what I'm going to have to do, or the way I'm going to do this, is put in my relief steps and then dome that front. I'll probably drill a hole before I do that, just so that I'm not trying to dome in the centre there. Once I've done that, I can then come in with my knurl. Hopefully this will work, reasonably well and be pretty straightforward. Part it off, clean it up, and there's my part. The reason I've taken that down is to try and give the minimum amount of contact area for that and the knurl. If I did the knurl right along and then had to come back and shorten it, more knurling force. Push knurling like this is bad enough on the bearings anyway. This is 316 stainless, and so it could work harden on me a little bit, as austenitic stainlesses do. So I really need to get in there, put the knurl in, and then get out without dwelling and letting the stuff harden and causing me all sorts of strife there. Once that's done, I'll just come in and I'll trim up the corners, part off, I can tap, and then fingers crossed it'll be done. There's my copy of a knob and a real knob. And I think they look close enough. The real one's a bit battered up and beaten, but then mine's no great shakes either, so I think they'll do quite nicely as a matching set. That feature is important because of this. So I'm going to lower that all the way down to there. Now, I'm quite a bit out there. By adjusting these two screws here, I've effectively zeroed the scriber, the stylus, on the table here. Now, if you're measuring something, that means that you can now come along and put that down like so, and say, right, that's 14.9 millimeters high. What that moving scale means you can do though is you can put something like a DTI in here, zero that, adjust the scale to where the scale is reading 0, 0, whatever 0, whatever you want, or even you could put an offset in there if you like, and then you can come along, there we go, and measure things, and there we go, 14.9 again. But if I take this out and put the scriber back in, take this down to 0, as you can see, there's a gap under there, so it gives you that adjustment that you can allow for different bits of kit. So it's an interesting little device. So thanks for watching, and I hope this has been of interest and inspired a few people to perhaps look at some second-hand measuring gear. Certainly old stuff like this is not terribly difficult to strip down, clean up and put back into use.